today we are going to be talking about how to navigate our relationships at home, in the workplace, personally, professionally, in a way that is going to help us to have more peace, more fulfillment, more joy, all
Yes.
those different kinds of things. So, specifically, we're talking about how to create more positive relationships both in the workplace and in our personal lives through greater self awareness. So, Jay Branch, if you could just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and say hi to
Yes.
our wave makers.
Well, first of all, hello, wave makers. Happy Monday. My name is Janita Branch, but I go by J Branch. That's what most of those that follow me know me as. If you follow my blog and social media, I'm a blogger. I'm a speaker, a facilitator. And I am the owner founder of Purpose for a Purpose, which is it started out as an online blog, but it is growing into, as Daphne might say, a movement, a community of women specifically who are just in pursuit of living an authentic and purposeful life. And so I'm just happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, my first question to you today would be when it comes to how to create more positive relationships personally and professionally through greater self awareness, what's the first thing that you'd like to share with wave makers about that?
So first, I want to share a fact with you all because a lot of times when you ask the question, if you think that you are self aware, most people will say yes. Well, the Harvard Business Review, and a couple others have done studies. And if you ask people that, 95% of people say yes. But in actuality, 10 to 15% of us actually are really self aware. And that changes, right? Because being self aware isn't a destination, it's a journey. And so when it comes to increasing our self awareness, there are two common mistakes that people make when they are looking to increase their self awareness. And the first one is asking ourselves the question, why versus what. Sometimes we think that just asking ourselves why will get to the answer, but we also need to incorporate the what into the questioning of really trying to increase our self-awareness and to know ourselves, and then also using self-reflection as the only method to become more self-aware. So a lot of times we just think that if we just journal and ask ourselves why, that we're going to increase our self-awareness, but that's not true, because that's only you're really only that's an internal question. You're only having an internal moment of reflection when you're doing self reflection, and so you want there. So those are the first two mistakes. Does that?
Can you give us an example of someone asking why versus what? So, like, I'm
Yeah.
thinking, yeah, an
So, for
example from
example,
your
so let's say
perspective.
that there's a task that you are trying to accomplish, or a goal. So instead of just saying, "Well, why is it that I can't reach this goal? Why can't I accomplish this task?" You would ask yourself, "What is it?" You would ask yourself, in addition to why, um, what are the circumstances what are the circumstances in which I fail at this task, or what can I do what can I do to change the circumstances? So those actually would go together versus just asking yourself, why do I fail? Because why do I fail? I could easily just say, because I don't know how to do it. Well, that didn't really get me anywhere. But when you ask yourself what, you're getting to the specifics around the problem. You're going deeper, you're getting to the root problem. And if I'm only and here's the other side of what I was saying is, if I'm only having the conversation with myself, it's one-sided. It's a one-sided conversation, because we all have blind spots. And I can't see my blind spots initially. That's why we bring other people into the conversation. That's why getting feedback at work is so important. Talking to our supervisors, if you have a team, soliciting their opinion, soliciting their input, into what you could be doing better, what they're observing, because there are things about us, about ourselves, that we aren't aware of. And so sometimes we don't seek feedback because it's not always comfortable, right? But I think it's all about the perspective. If you're looking for the feedback in order to grow and to make changes, especially if there's an outcome that you aren't happy or satisfied with and you want to change it, you get feedback so that you can change it. so that you can find a different way to maybe go about addressing that task or that problem. So just being open to the feedback and not looking at it so much as negative, but as it's constructive. It's going to help us to reach the goal that we're trying to reach. I think will open up our eyes and open up our willingness to receive feedback, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's running a business, whether it's in our relationships with our friends or our spouses, even our kids. I don't, that's something that I don't think we do a lot of, it, asking our kids how they feel. If there's things that they are observing about us that they wish that maybe we would change or even handle things differently. So getting feedback.
Gotcha. So what
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing you say is even in something like if someone is having a conflict at work, instead of just saying, why is this happening? Why is this person being so rude to me? Why are they so disrespectful when we interact? To say, what is it that I can do? Or what is it, who can I talk to?
Yeah.
Like, what is it that I need to do in order to resolve this issue?
Yeah.
So taking it from being in your mind, just asking yourself why, to really taking action. And for me, I feel like the way that shows up for a number of people who I've interacted with over the years is the difference between procrastination and really feeling anxious and frustrated about a situation or things you wish you could do.
Yeah.
To actually taking action and doing those things.
Absolutely.
And then fulfilling your dreams or your vision.
Yes.
Or all that good.
Absolutely, because when you said that, made me think of like there are a lot of different cognitive distortions, and so when analysis paralysis, and so there, I think so. For example, like I have that. If there's a task that I just think is, it's really big, I can't see how I'm going to get to the end, or it just causes stress. Maybe it's the deadline. I will procrastinate. I will stall. And I just realized this maybe a month ago after just asking myself a few questions, and journaling. I'm a big journaler. I will journal, but I go back and read. And that's the other thing about journaling. You got to go back and read your stuff and to see a pattern as to what was happening. So to your point, that's why asking other people is important, but also getting out of our head and being willing to say, okay, it's not always it could be the other person, but we all contribute something to a situation. So it's not just the other person. We bring something to the table too. So that self-awareness helps us to identify what we are bringing to the table, and even unintentionally, because sometimes we aren't even aware of what we are bringing to the table.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Thank you so much, Jay Branch.
Yes.
And what's the second thing that you want to share about how to have more positive relationships personally and professionally through self-awareness?
So in the workplace, when it comes to just advancing in the workplace or even in your business, having a lack of self-awareness can hurt you just as much as not having an accurate assessment of self. So it's one thing to not have self-awareness, like you're not aware of yourself, like what you bring to the table, like we talked about your strengths, your weaknesses, what are the circumstances in which you experience stress and how you act under stressful situations, but not having an accurate assessment. So I can believe that I am great at building a house, let's just say, right? But I really can't. Right, like I'm really not, but I believe that I am because my assessment that I have of myself isn't accurate. And so, if it's not accurate, then you'll pursue things that you really aren't maybe skilled enough to do at the moment. Doesn't mean that you can't be, but that you're not skilled enough to do, that you don't have the knowledge to do. And so you might find yourself in situations that don't allow you to be as successful as you would like to be. So if you are put on a team and you let's say you volunteer for a task that requires you to be very detail oriented, and that is not your strong suit, it can hurt. It can hurt not just you, but it can hurt the team. It can hurt the overall company. For a bit like business owners, if you're not really good with finances and managing or like accounting, you should know that. But if you think that you are, and you try to taking on your finances, your accounting, you might run into some problems. You might think you have more money than what you really do and overspend. It's a cycle, and so it hurts the business. So making sure that you have a great assessment of yourself is the other aspect of self-awareness. It's not just knowing, but making sure that it's accurate.
I think that sounds really, really good. And part of it is because I think when it comes to relationships, whether it's personal or work relationships, if let's say you have an attitude but you don't know it,
Mm-hmm.
like every time I have a job, these employers always got a problem with me because they're jealous of me, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you just may have an attitude and you don't really realize it, or
Yes.
not. No, or not. Maybe you're doing everything that you can to try to have a positive relationship,
Yeah.
or maybe you're not. Like, but maybe you don't know it. And I think if you're like that in a friendship, like you're like, you know what, everybody is always, trying me and running away from
Mm-hmm.
me, but maybe, that person is a fighter, but they don't really realize it. So
Yeah. I always
I think
say
how that could be helpful.
if you whenever they're like if you are having issues in your relationships or even like you said in the workplace, the one common thread is you. So so it's great to look at the situations and the relationships and the other people, but the thing that they all have in common is you. So it's starting to look at how is it that you are showing up in those situations, in those environments, in those relationships that could be contributing in part to the lack, to whatever it is that you aren't getting out of the friendships or that you're not wanting. Why are the relationships not working out? Like why are we having these tense moments? Like it we have to be willing to have conversations with ourselves about ourselves. It's about the relationships that we have. It's that intra perspective. Like we get the interpersonal relationships. We get that how well do you play well with others, but how well what's the relationship that you have with yourself? Like there's a connection there because how I relate to myself, how I think about myself, how I feel about myself, how I see myself, it impacts how I also communicate and how I interact with other people, how I talk to other people, my perception of how other people see me, that it becomes the filter through which many of those interactions are filtered through, which impacts how I then respond, and the emotional triggers that we experience, which is a whole nother topic. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's wonderful too about what you're saying is if you become self-aware that you're not great at a certain thing, then you can also seek help. So it's not that you can't do it. Like if
Right.
I know someone who's watching right now, she has a makeup company, for example. So if you find that you're not good at numbers, at accounting, then
Mm-hmm.
it's not that you can't do it at all. You can outsource it, but maybe you could then work on those accounting skills as opposed
Right.
to getting in trouble with taxes or just driving the business down into the ground. Like you got to
Absolutely.
figure out what you need to work on, and then maybe you can outsource it or you can learn how to do it better. And I would say for those who I'm pro therapy, like for those who have
Yes.
therapists, and of course I'm a coach,
Oh,
so
coach.
I'm pro coach, pro therapy, like, and pro having a friend like Jay Branch and I have known each other for a long time, and she is that friend. That like having a friend that can help you process things when you're in that moment and you feel like everybody else is gonna think that you're like you've lost your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like have all of them if you need it, but I think those are things that also can help you so that you can have people on the outside of you if you need that to help you be more self-aware. I was
Yes.
talking to someone who I've known for since like elementary school years ago, and we were talking about relationships. And I was telling her some stuff that's like not the easiest thing to say to somebody, but I feel like I don't know if anybody else would say it. And I love her, like I care for
Mm.
her. So I'm going to share those things with her. So I think sometimes it's helpful as a leader, as a manager, as a family member, as a sister friend to also help the people around you to be more self-aware because like you said they could be hurting themselves or
Mm-hmm.
their future professionally or personally not knowing the things that you might see. So
Yeah.
I'm loving what you're talking about, and I'm also just encouraging people like you don't have to not do the thing right that you're doing, but be self-aware. Like Jay Brand said, think about what the common denominator is if you've been in the same situation over and over again, over and over and
Mm-hmm.
over again, and then figure out what you do from there. That's
Yeah.
good. That's good. So,
Yes.
what would be the third thing that you think is really important to share about creating positive relationships at work and personally through
Yeah.
greater self awareness?
So we kind of touched on it a little bit, and it's dealing with our emotions. So because when it comes to increasing our self awareness or just becoming more self aware, the first thing though that we have to realize is that our emotions are very complex. That there's a complexity that exists with them. Oftentimes, when we experience an emotion, it is not just one single emotion. It is it's an emotional cocktail, if you will. Like it's not just, sometimes it's not really just fear. It could be fear, it can be embarrassment, it could be anger. Like, and that's why it requires it's work, right? Like, I don't want to paint the picture like if you just journal this one day, you're gonna get all the answers and you're gonna be able to move on. A lot of times there's layers to what's really going on, why we are reacting or responding. We want to get to the point that we can respond, but a lot of times we're reacting because we do live, most of the time we are on autopilot, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just how it is, because there have been circumstances and situations that have happened in our life that we have developed this way of being as a way of protection. It protects us. It keeps us from things happening again. But once you realize that, then you can make the change. A lot of times, when we are being emotionally triggered, it's coming from it's called a core hurt. It's a hurt that's happened in your life that has not been, you haven't addressed, and it hasn't healed. You haven't worked on it, right? It's like putting stitches on something that really needs surgery. It's not gonna do it's not gonna get the end result that you need. You need surgery. You need surgery. So that's really, really important. And so the emotional triggers or realizing that our emotions are complex is an important part of the self awareness.
Thank you.
Go there.
This is good. Let me also say, because we have somebody
Okay.
who's doing commenting. We got a few comments.
Okay.
So comments are: I heard your brain is attempting to protect you from whatever you fear. That it can be a reason for procrastination, like not wanting to deal with the emotions of things or being self-aware. And that person said, I'm just now getting into a journey of self-reflection. They say not everyone responds well to truth, which is very, very true. So I'm going to use some examples of, I had one client, when it comes to like your past influencing your present, one client who was doing career coaching, and we were doing interview prep. And I do not usually do this, y'all, but what I did with that person, because they were making, and I love her so much, facial expressions a lot during the interview when they didn't get something right in the way that they wanted, where they looked like they were telling themselves off, like they were like just looking at themselves, like they were cursing at themselves. And I stopped and I said, was there anything? Let me see. Did people communicate to you negatively in your youth? is what I felt led to
yes.
ask or whatever. Have you had those kind? She said no, but later on she told me that was a lie. Then she had some challenges. Regardless of her answer, what I said was, it seems like you right now are telling yourself really bad things in the midst of the interview. Whenever you make a mistake, you're actually not even sounding bad. Like, you're sounding really good. But what I was wondering is, the reason why I asked that is because maybe someone has taught you that you are a certain way that's negative, and now you are saying that yourself.
Yeah.
So in order for you to be able to transform your interview skills, you have to believe that you are not whatever it is that you're calling yourself when you're making these facial expressions.
Yes.
Boom. Her interviews transformed.
Yes.
Said other people outside of the career coaching thought that she was really talking to a therapist, even though she said it was career coaching. But part of you walking fully in your purpose vocationally is making sure you address the way that you deal with your emotions.
Yeah.
If you're blowing up at work, it may have nothing to do with your colleagues and more to do with your emotions and how you deal with them. If you feel like you're depressed, if you're always anxious and it's appearing in whatever dream that you're trying to fulfill right now, more about dealing with emotions in the past than what's going on right now. If you are, because I know we got people who are watching who are YouTubers.
Oh, yeah.
We got people who are watching who are trying to do these Facebook Lives. And I know some people who I worked with in the past who it was a year and they could not do a Facebook Live or a video. And it took me 2 years to get on video, y'all. So I'm not paying for that. Okay. But in order for you to do that, if the fear is so strong that you may even be afraid to put yourself out there, it may be something that you have to walk through from your past.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
Walk through the emotions that you're feeling from your past. I love how you talk about that, the dealing with the emotions, because it's not just about dealing with the story from the past and finding peace in it. It's about how that story is impacting you now in your relationships personally and professionally. And like my husband has told me before, when he when he is better personally, it translates to him being better professionally at
Absolutely.
work.
Absolutely.
So it all relates. Any thoughts on what I just said?
I mean, I think it's good. I think you just kind of just summed it up. No, but you did. I mean, it is. You're spot on, Daphne. I can't. I don't even think I can add to what you just said. I mean, it's true though. Like our emotions, they just we have to. Here's another thing too. Name the emotion. I am notorious for saying I just feel some type of way. I just, and that's okay. Like I know that that's a that's something that we say, and so if that's what you say in the beginning. That's great, but I encourage you to do the work to figure out, well, what feels some type of way. Well, what way is that specifically? Like let's get to naming the emotion, like naming it, so then we can begin to address it. Especially when it comes to the negative emotions or fears. Like there have been studies that have been done that have shown that if you label the emotion, or especially negative ones, you will be able to like overcome it and to really deal with it. But you have to be able, you got to name the emotion. And that's what, and with them being so complex, naming one is great, but a lot of times you got to, there's more behind just the one, and so it's understanding that, and being able to work through the complexity of our emotions, and understanding too, like the things that the circumstances that really trigger us, that get us to that cause a volatile reaction. It's I call it your emotional kryptonite. We all experience the emotions, but there is one emotion that most of us like don't we try to avoid. Whether it could be conflict, it could be, I mean, it could be anger. There's something that we are trying to avoid. It's like Superman and kryptonite, right? So we all have that in the form of emotion. I, for example, and it stems from a place of an emotional need. We all have emotional needs. And so whenever we feel that it's being threatened, or that it's not being met, and it's just our perception, because sometimes it's not really the case, but I perceive that you are, maybe you're ignoring me, or you're trying to take control, because maybe, let's say, control is one of those things that I really like, or that I feel like I need to be in control, and I feel like you're taking it away. It may cause a reaction in me. Or let's say I have a need to complete a process. This is real. When I start something, I like to finish it. I have 3 kids. If you can imagine, all of them being home since February has been challenging. So when I start a process and I get interrupted, it starts to, initially in the beginning, it's okay. But over time, I start to become very stressed, because there's a fear that I'm not going to complete the task. And for me, that's very important, especially if there's something associated with me completing the task, getting it to a client, or just getting something done in order to move to the next step. And so it creates stress. And then my response isn't always so great. But now that I know that if I'm getting ready to do a task that's really important, and this is great at work, if you're like this, let it, saying, hey, I let my kids know up front, hey, mom's getting ready to go upstairs. I got to go to my office. I have something I really need to do. I need about 30 minutes or an hour or whatever it is, and I let them know up front. They know that they can come to me. If it's an emergency, come get me. But if it's not and it can wait until I finish. So setting the expectations. But I had to find that out about myself, so that I could then communicate it to my kids or my husband. If I was in the workplace, communicating it to my team. And you may not always be able to do that. Like, I understand your supervisor needs you when they need you, right? But when you know that, you're able to communicate it in a different way.
That is so good, because one of the things that I regret when I was a career professional was not always speaking up for what I preferred,
Yeah.
in a very kind way. I remember my first internship, there was someone who sat next to me. God bless her. But she used to tell me all her business, all her personal business, all day. And I was like, maybe she'll notice that I'm not telling her all my personal business.
No.
Stop. No. She really enjoyed talking to me, and
Yeah.
it's like I've always been, I'm very spiritual, I'm Christian. I was like, the right thing to do is probably to listen to her, but like all kind of stuff I didn't want to hear. Like, not my little ears were very conservative. I didn't want to hear it, but I didn't say anything about it. And then I had the opposite at a job. You all may have heard me tell the story, whoever's watching. Years later, I had someone who did not talk to me. Like, she completely ignored me. I'd be like, hey, can you pass me the stapler? And completely ignored me. She talked to me like 6 years later and told me why. It was great. It was something we could have hashed out if I just was like, hey,
Okay.
why did you ignore me? And maybe she would have just ignored me, but it would have been better than having that go on for
Yeah.
months. And it was something that someone else had done. She thought that someone else thought that I was better or something. But I could have just talked to her about that then and there. I had no idea why she was that way. So when we become self-aware, from what I'm hearing you say, of what we like and what we don't like and what makes us feel a certain way, it would have just made my life so much better if I would just communicate to those people in those different situations what I was feeling.
Absolutely.
Someone put in a comment, untold expectations are future resentments. I wanted to use like a marriage example for every example today, but I was trying not to use
Well, that's good though. That's really good. I mean, and I think that as you really get to know yourself, I think that there's a confidence that comes with that. You know, you can be. I mean, it is difficult because someone not everyone responds well to truth, and that's true. Not everyone does respond well to truth, and not everybody. And it's a process. So, like what you're saying, Daphne, just being ready to communicate. When you're talking, I thought boundaries. You know, the more that you know yourself and get comfortable, you're like, this is my these are my boundaries, right? We should have them, even if it's just time, if it's, you know, physical boundaries, whatever it is, what the things that make us comfortable and uncomfortable, but being able to communicate that. And so finding a way that works for you, that you're comfortable with. And I think it changes, like you grow more comfortable with it over time. Like I'm very good at saying, when I don't want to give out my personal information to people. I used to would just give it out because I didn't want to be rude. But now I found a very strategic way to kind of say no, or to not do it. I give them what I'm comfortable with, but I don't give my phone number out to everybody. I have very specific lanes depending on the circle, and this is a whole nother topic in terms of relationships. You know, my friends they have access to me in ways that people that are associates and acquaintances may not. And can I put a plug in for a book? Can I do this? If you are familiar, if you don't know, look this guy. His name is Dharuis Daniels. He's a pastor, but he has a book called Relational Intelligence. Read it. It's talking about relationships and just really being purposeful with our friendships and the relationships in our life, and it's really good. And so it talks about the boundaries and investing our resources into the right places. You don't invest the same way you do with your friends as you do with acquaintances or even people that were sent into your life to be assignments. So we can post it in the comments, but boundaries and just learning to be comfortable with communicating what what we like and don't like, what we need and what we don't need is really important.
That's good. That's good. Thank you so much, Jay Branch. I think that's a great segue into my last question, which is thank you so much for the information that you shared with us today. What is one resource, that might be the resource or maybe something else, what is one resource that you think would be helpful for our wave makers, either a resource from you or from someone else? And then also, how can we keep in touch with you?
Oh man, just one. I'm not good at one, Daphne. Okay, well, I actually have a worksheet. It's on my website. It's for self-awareness. It's to really get you to be an aid in the journey of increasing your self-awareness. So I can put it. I can put it in the comments. I can share. It's a PDF. You can download it. Can I be disobedient? Can I give them more than one, please?
Sure.
Okay. Because it's just not. So you have this worksheet and we're going to put in there. I would encourage you, if you have not taken a personality test in the last 2 years, I encourage you to do so. We all are changing. We're evolving. My favorite is the Enneagram. If you have never heard of it, look into it. If you haven't taken the test, I encourage you to take the test. It tells you so much about your personality, but more specifically, it tells you about the challenges of your personality and how to navigate that, how to use your strengths and your weakness. You know, I say opportunities. I don't like weaknesses, but how to identify those and how to use and how to grow. I've taken many personality tests, and this is one that when I read it, I'm amazed at how accurate it is and just helping me to identify things in my life that I'm like, oh, that's why I do that, huh? And it makes sense. Like when I read it to my husband, he's like, yeah, that's you. And I'm like, I didn't know that. So the Enneagram is definitely one I would encourage you to take. Self-awareness is really a component of emotional intelligence. It is probably the most important. It's one of the higher components, and it's the one that I say to start at if you want to increase your emotional intelligence. So self-awareness. So a self-awareness or emotional intelligence test is always a great place to start if you just want to see where you are. If you want to see where you're at in terms of self-awareness, and there's a free one that I'll put the link. I'll just put all the links in there. So for the workshop, for the worksheet, and the test, I'll put them in there. If you would like to keep in touch with me, to connect on social media, I am on Facebook, Purpose for a Purpose. We are also on Instagram, Purpose for a Purpose, and the website is www.purposeforapurpose.com. That's the name everywhere, actually. So you'll be able to find me, but we will put the link so that you can connect. And I love just helping people. I love helping women, people in general, but specifically women, to just to know who they are. And to just really have a better understanding of who they are, and from a spiritual sense in terms of your identity in Christ, but also just what makes you you and how you can navigate the world in a way that that you desire to, and that's healthy, that produces fruit, and just walking in your purpose. And so, yeah, I'm glad. Thank you for allowing me to be on the show, or can I say show? To be a part of the group today, Daphne. I really do appreciate it. I think I lost you. Oh no, is it just me? Daphne? I think we lost Daphne. So what we'll do, I'm gonna wait and see if she comes back, but we'll post all the stuff on the chat if you all would love to connect, and I have the resources on the website, so feel free to download it. It's free. You don't have to pay for it. I just like giving stuff away. And I was hoping she was gonna come back. I don't want to end. Anybody have any questions while we wait for Daphne to come back, or comments? I don't see anything. Okay, there she is. See, I was okay, girl. We.
That's good. And you talked about. Sorry, y'all. Sorry. Oh, they said thank you for the information.
Yes.
Amen, Corey. Well, thank you so much. Sorry, I had a few technical difficulties.
It happens. It's all good.
Thank you so much. But it's a pleasure having you today.
No, thank you.
Thank you for everything that you share with us. It looked like you were holding it down when I was gone. So